Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have a really cool channel first for you from the brand Zelos. Now, Zelos, a little bit about them. They were actually founded just in 2014. They are a micro-brand startup with a very unique kind of overbuilt design aesthetic that I think has really paid off and really garnished them quite a bit of a cult following. Now, this particular type of watch is, of course, a dive watch, and some key common characteristics in design language when you're looking for a dive watch is you're going to be wanting to find something that is, of course, water resistant through some type of screw down crown, something tough, legible, with a dive time bezel, and a diver's extension if on bracelet. So let's go ahead and take a closer look. All right, so before we jump into that, actually, let's take a quick look here. There's a really cool box. It even has little magnetic snaps, so it'll stay closed, which is nice. And then it actually comes with its own watch roll, which I think is pretty awesome, as you can see here. And if we pop it open real quick, really nice when you kind of get a little bonus with your purchase. You actually get some useful gear, which is nice, especially considering how much you would pay for a watch roll, especially one. It's really nice quality here. So this watch actually does come with a nice tropic rubber strap, as well as a really nice vintage style leather strap with really great hardware, as you can see here. Nice fine bevel there, beautifully chamfered, and then just everything is nice and overbuilt again, and really beautiful. There's actually been a couple video reviews of this watch that have already featured it kind of on those factory options. Oh, one other thing that I thought was pretty cool was the warranty card, which is nicely machined there. I thought that was pretty awesome. Also nice touch. But for this review, since we've already there's already, you know, videos and whatnot that are featuring it on its factory options, I thought it would be interesting to put it here on a nice diver's mesh, and what I think is one of the best diver's mesh on the market in the Stabe dive mesh. As you can see here, really nice 22 millimeters, and it also has a diver's extension and a nice push button deployment clasp, which I think is really nice. Really finely finished, made in Germany, and I think it actually does suit the watch really well. I think, you know, of course, a blue diver really goes well on a mesh. Now, a little bit about this model. This is, of course, the Mako Diver. Now, it's named the Mako Diver because the Mako shark is the fastest shark in the world. It's, of course, smaller and more streamlined. You know, and this is actually Zelos' smallest diver yet. They're known for much bigger watches, and kind of the, you know, their demographic has been calling for a smaller model, and this is what they came out with. And I think, you know, this thing is just gorgeous, and I'm very, very impressed. This is my first Zelos that I've handled, and I gotta say, this, if this is any indication of their other items that they've released, this is a brand that definitely is going places. So the pricing on these is a little interesting. There's actually pre-order pricing that's actually still active, but you can actually buy the watches now. They actually are starting at $399, and then pretty much depending on how soon or late you pre-order, the price will go all the way up to the retail price of $749. Basically, for every, you know, 20 pieces that they sell in each color scheme, the prices will increase by $30 until it goes up to that full retail of about $749. So I think that's actually pretty cool that they can offer it like that, and it does kind of rush people, you know, gives them a little bit of urgency and a little kick in the pants to pull the trigger on a watch that they've been eyeing, and kind of getting it rather sooner than later. So I think that's really nice. So one of the nice things about this watch is that it is that magic 40 millimeter diameter, which is great. It is only 13.5 millimeters high, which of course for a dive watch, especially one with, you know, 500 meters water resistance, that's pretty darn good considering. And then also, I mean, some of that height is of course this nicely kind of box domed sapphire there, which is just beautiful. And I really visually, I mean, this is just so much dive watch eye candy. It just has the things that you like and look for when checking out a dive watch. So of course, also the lug to lug is 46 millimeters, which is a really nice conservative size. And this is definitely made out of 316 L stainless steel. And then the sapphire itself is 2.5 millimeters thick, and then of course it is a double dome, so there's not going to be a bunch of distortion. As you can see, very readable even at these harsh angles. And then it does have those box styled edges there that sit proud of the bezel, so very nicely done from that standpoint. Now the bezel is 120 clicks, unidirectional. Bit tough to grasp in these gloves, but very notchy and clicky, no play whatsoever. Lines up just perfectly there, as you can see. And then the crown is actually signed very nicely. Very small crown though. I will mention it definitely is a bit small, but I'm able to actuate it pretty well, so I'm not too worried about it. And the nice thing is it's actually lumed. This whole bezel is lumed, and of course the indices and whatnot are lumed. So really nice. And then we move over to the back, and although you can't see the movement, this is using the Swiss Automatic Sellita SW200, which is, you know, a very nice workhorse. You'll find it in many different Oris watches. It's basically just a, you know, clone of the ETA 2824. So super serviceable, super reliable, and robust. There's a reason why it's so popular, and it's because it's a good movement. It's not hot horology by any means, but I think if you're looking for a robust dive watch, you're not looking for hot horology anyway. So, but I really do like the etching here on the shark. I think that's really cool. As you can see, very minimalist background there with that nice kind of bead blast finish, but it does give you a little bit of information there as far as, you know, the name, the depth, the steel, sapphire, and then the edition out of 100. This is number 3, which is really cool. So nicely done there. So just to really dive into what I think is the key selling feature in this watch is that dial, and the color scheme in general is just really beautiful. But this dial is really quite amazing. It has this reflective blue kind of 3D texture to it. Of course, it does have applied indices. It has the date at 6 o'clock, which is really, really nice placement there. And they even have the blue date disc matched. So super well integrated and thought out from a design perspective. And just the way the light plays with this dial is absolutely outstanding, as you can see there. It does use actually a mixture of, it has C3 and BGW9 lume on here, and you'll see that when we get to the lume shot portion. It does have some different colored lume, which I think is really cool. It's a contrast issue. It's not like they did it to cheap out in any way. They did it as a design feature, and I think it really does come off that way. And then as far as the lugs go, this is of course using 20 millimeter lugs, and then this bracelet is aftermarket, but I think it does suit it really well. And if you want to get any other type of mesh, this is what it will look like, just to kind of give you an idea. Although I do really like the vintage tropic style rubber, and the vintage style leather strap is also very nice. So let's go ahead and get this on wrist. All right, as you can see, this thing wears just about perfectly on my 7 1/4 inch wrist. Honestly, you probably can't tell from the camera because it's always gonna make things look a little bit bigger when you're doing a wrist shot. You know, the watch is gonna appear much larger, but honestly, on person, I almost feel like this watch could possibly wear a little bit too small, because it uses a lot of the tricks that watches that are larger, like let's say an SKX, kind of some of the tricks that they pull off, like the Squall 50 Atmos, or Squall A if you want to get real fancy with it. But the 50 Atmos, also similar, the 4 o'clock crown and everything, but the way that it actually do you see how it pushes the indices towards the center there? It really makes the dial look smaller. It has that outer chapter ring, and then it has, of course, all these adornments, all the indexes there, which help, you know, greatly with readability, but also it helps fill space on the dial, so it makes the dial feel a bit smaller because there's so much information there. If there was less information there, then of course it would be less inputs and your eyes would just see more space and it would feel a bit bigger. So normally larger watches will kind of pull these tricks to wear a little bit smaller, but this is the first time like a watch that I've seen that's really kind of the right appropriate size at 40 millimeters is using kind of all these tricks to shrink the watch down even more. So although if this is a 40 millimeter watch, I would say it almost wears closer to probably a 38 or a 39, maybe at least visually. On the wrist, it still feels probably like a 40. But I mean, in any way, it's not bad. But I mean, if you have a really small wrist, this is probably the diver for you because you're going to get a lot of watch for the money, you know, in a physical sense as well. In that you're going to get a decently hefty watch that's actually going to visually appear and even wear and feel comfortable in more of a smaller, lighter weight type of way. So I really do like this piece here on wrist. Gorgeous. I think, you know, blue watch with the Milanese mesh there, of course, is always really nice. And Stabe does the best mesh out there, in my opinion, especially with this great push button, you know, clasp there, and then the diver's extension. Really cool. And it really helps make the watch feel complete. Of course, there are other options out there, you know, from strap code and stuff you could get. I think like a hexed oyster would look really great on this. Even like a Jubilee or something like that, beads of rice. There's a lot of options out there that are on straight end links, so you could definitely check those out. But I think I really like the play of the texture on the mesh playing off of the texture on the dial. That really cool kind of sunburst wave dial there. You know, the pattern actually centers right there in the middle and then works its way outwards, and then the way the light hits it, I feel like the extra texture here on the mesh bracelet really tie in visually, gives it a nice aesthetic there. But let's go ahead and get some shots for the Lume. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights. So as you can see, really nice and bright there. Really beautiful contrast in the Lume with the C3 pretty much predominantly there, but then on the seconds hand and also that center index, you're gonna see that really nice blue tone as well from the BGW9. And then let's go ahead and also get some low light transition. As you can see there, of course, my studio lights do a really good job of imitating fully lit outdoor direct sunlight, but what it doesn't do necessarily is do a great job of showing you every situation, and probably a more likely situation of where you're going to see this watch, which is going to be an indirect light, you know, coming in and out of a vehicle, in and out of a you know, a building, something like that. And one of the nice things is that play of light, it actually really gives you a good idea of kind of those tones, but in this case it gives you an idea of the play of light that dances all over this dial. This beautiful ceramic bezel insert. If I didn't mention that already, I'm sorry. It does have a nice ceramic bezel insert, and it's actually brushed, which also adds a little bit more texture to it, and instead of the kind of the generic glossy sheen that you're gonna see in most ceramic bezel inserts. So really, really nice. And another nice little feature of this watch is that it actually has a lumed, let's see, let me get it charged up there. It actually has a lumed, as you can see, check that out, lumed crown. Really cool, super readable, especially after that direct charge there. Really, really nice. And you can really see the contrast in the loom there when it has that full charge going. Really nicely done. And then look at that. The distortion, or lack thereof I should say, is definitely really nice. So this thing's going to be very readable in the dark, in the depth, if you decide to take it diving, of course. So really, really nice. Can't say enough good things about this piece. Let's go ahead and hit the lights while that actually adjusts kind of back to the right color focus and everything there. We can get some closing thoughts. But also I wanted to mention, look at these bevels. Oh man. That's one of the things I look for. It's really a sign of just precision and fine execution. As you can see there, just really beautifully sharp bevels. So big fan of that. Now, of course, some closing thoughts. You know, on the wrist, it has really classic proportions, but it still feels like a tool watch, just with a splash of refinement, and then of course a lot of personality with that dial design, the texture, the layout. I mean, everything about this piece, you know, it's just not derivative. Although it might, you know, remind you of another watch, maybe reminds you of a 50 Atmos from Squall, or maybe it reminds you of an SKX from Seiko. It's definitely, you know, it might remind you of them, but it's not derivative of them. It's just, it's doing its own thing, but in a way that still looks clean. It's tough for divers because, you know, they're very minimalistic designs already because they're meant to be very legible. So there's only so many ways you can do bright, bold indices that don't look like, you know, the dial of a Submariner. So it's tough, and I think Zelos has really done a great job of making something that has a lot of originality, but at the same time, you know, still has that spirit. It doesn't feel like it was done differently just to be different. It feels like it was done differently because it was designed originally. So I think that's just a great feature, especially for a small up and coming brand. As far as model variants go, they do have a gray dial model with a black bezel, and they also have a meteorite dial with a black bezel, and then a black dial, and then it actually has blue accents. So that's pretty cool. And then of course, the gray one I mentioned actually has orange accents, which is very nice. So those are also other models to keep an eye out for. Now, comparable models, I'd say this really competes with more mainstream Swiss brands, you know, and micro brands alike. So I think this is really in a sweet spot, especially with the pricing and for everything it offers. I mean, this is something that's doing something really special, and it's doing a lot of things right. So very impressed. Although, yeah, sure, it's not Swiss made, it still does have a Swiss movement, and it's finished super nice. So I mean, with the case finishing that good, you can only imagine that the production quality and everything like that was also pretty top notch. I'd say this really most closely reminds me to kind of a modernized version of the Squall 50 Atmos. You know, it does add some more premium materials, you know, by adding ceramic insert and whatnot, and then also the execution feels a little bit more premium because it does use applied indices. So yeah, and if I had a 20 Atmos, I'd probably have it on this exact same mesh as well, but in polished, because this, for some reason, the 50 Atmos doesn't come in a so yeah, this is another reason why it competes with it, because it's also 50 atmospheres or 500 meters. But yeah, so that watch is all polished. It's a great looking watch, you know, but honestly, this feels like it's just taking that blueprint up to another level. And again, I don't think Zelos sat down and said, hey, let's make a modern, you know, 50 Atmos or anything like that. I think what they produced, for me, especially in the blue guys, it really just ties into that kind of theme for me, which I think Squall really, you know, they really nailed that theme. So when I see something else come along that kind of fills that space, of course I'm going to draw comparisons. So, I mean, really the bottom line is you're getting a lot of watch for the money, especially at these kind of launch special slash early bird prices. So, I mean, if you can get these before they go on to full retail, you're getting it for an absolute steal. If you get them at retail, honestly, it's still a pretty solid value, $7.49. So we're talking, that's like Christopher Ward territory. And of course, Christopher Ward C60 is, although it's going to have 600 meters water resistance versus 500 meters, you know, the style and whatnot, the sizing, this is going to be right there in the middle of 40 millimeter versus a 43 or a 38. So one of the nice things is that, yeah, that's available, and then also it's a little bit more niche and in its styling and its design aesthetic. So it's going to be just a little bit less vanilla and maybe a little less of a crowd pleaser, but it's, in some ways there might be less people who like it, but there are going to be quite a few more people who love it. And then there's going to be a couple people, of course, that can't stand it and think it's hideous, but I'm definitely not one of those people. Let me know if you are, though, in the comments below. If you liked the video, please do hit like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this, and make sure to hit that notification bell to be up on all the latest releases. Thanks, guys. Bye.